Now we're going to look at our walkthrough 1, apply margin, border, and padding to our style sheet. And let's look at this. It's tied into exercise 1. And again, these instructions are right below the video. We've provided the measurements, so you have the exact measurements for your margins and your patterns and your borders. So as usual, we're going to go into our inclusion folder. We're going to open our personal website in brackets. I'm just going to drag this folder into brackets. And I have mine again set up in split screen. You can do that by clicking vertical split here. And now we're going to start by applying margin. And the first thing we're going to apply margin to will be your container. And let's look at our final website. See how beautiful it is and everything is laid out properly. Let's preview our current website. And we're getting there. And so let's look at our container. What we're going to do is we're going to apply a margin of 0 auto. So 0 at the top, and then automatic margins to the right and to the left. Let's refresh. So notice what it's like without margin 0 auto. And this is what it's like with margin 0 auto. Notice it centers our page. And so that's the utility of margin 0 auto. Again, no margins at the top and bottoms, and automatic margins to the left and to the right. And now we're going to type that code in here, margin 0 auto. File save, Command S, reload. Look at that. We're getting closer to our final build. The next thing we're going to style is our H2 selector. Right now, if you look at this, our H2 selector is very close. And again, margin allows us to add space around their elements. And if you look here, there's room. There's a lot more breathing room. So let's look at About Me, which is our H2 element. We're going to apply a margin of 10 pixels by 0. And look at that, instantaneously all our H2s are now nicely spaced. The top has a margin of 10 pixels and the bottom. We don't need any margins to the right or to the left right now. So let's go into our H2 selector and write that rule. Margin 10 pixels by 0. Great job so far. We finished our H2. Now the next thing we're going to style will be our paragraph. Because notice how clustered together they are. And let's look at our final product. Notice how beautifully spaced they are. So we're going to find our P tag. And we're going to apply a margin of 10 pixels to the top and bottom. And 0 pixels to the right or left. So let's go back to our inspector. Let's click on a random paragraph tag. Margin 10 pixels, top and bottom, 0 pixels to the right and left. And let me uncheck this. Notice what happens if I uncheck it. Everything is very clustered together. So let's write this rule now here in our paragraph tag. Margin 0 auto. Command S or Control S to save. Let's reload our page. And look at that. It's getting closer and closer to our final product. The next thing we're going to style is going to be our logo. So logo is all bunched up right over here. Well, let's find our logo tag. And you can do Command F to find or Control F on Windows. And you can do logo. And we're going to give it a margin of 5 pixels at the bottom of our logo. So let's find our logo here. Margin And this is only to the bottom, so we want margin bottom 5 pixels. Look at that. There's more space to the bottom. Margin 5 pixels. Here you save and reload. And now it's coming together. The next thing we're going to style would be our navigation right here. So if we go to our style sheet, if you have nav with just blank curly braces, you can delete it. And we're going to create a new selector called nav, ULLI. And we want our margin here to be 0, 10 pixels. And let's look at what happens when we do that. So we have right now 0 pixels to the top and bottom and 10 pixels to the left and right. And notice if I increase the pixels, how it moves it left and right. And this will make more sense once we get to our next topic. Now we're going to style our main selector. So we can find main right here. And if you want to find it in our quote really quickly, we can hit Command F, type main. Found it here, and we're going to give it a margin of 20 pixels to the top and bottom and 0 pixels to the right and left. And let's uncheck that and notice what happened. See, if we uncheck it, my picture is right close to the edge here, but again, this gives us breathing room and it allows us to position things properly and precisely. So let's go over here and write that rule. And over time, using the Chrome Inspector, you'll be able to find the exact precise measurement that works for where you want to position certain elements on your page. The next thing we're going to target is our content selector. We can do this. So our class of content. Let's look here, content, and we want to give it a margin of 20 pixels by 100 pixels. So that's 20 pixels top and bottom and 100 pixels left and right. And notice what happens here. You have 20 pixels here, 20 pixels here to the top and bottom, 20 pixels here, 20 pixels here. And to the left and right we have 100 pixels. So 100 pixels here and 100 pixels here. And let's refresh this. And notice we're very close to our final product. And if we mess around with these rules, you'll see it'll push the content like that. And because we have 2 sections with the class of content, notice that they both have an equal space. And we can do this to mess with the width. So we're just going to refresh that. The next thing we'll look at after our content is our footer. And we're first going to look at our footer ULLI selector, which is at the bottom of our page. So let's go to footer. And then let's look at UL and then LI. Will footer again be in the parent, and this should have been blank, but now we're going to give it a margin of 0 to the top and bottom and 10 pixels to the left and right. So the next thing we're going to style will be the paragraph in our footer right here, the copyright, and we're going to give that footer paragraph a margin of 0. So you want no margins around our footer paragraph, and you'll see why later. The next thing we're going to give margin to is going to be your social media. And we want to give it a margin of 5 pixels at the bottom. And notice what happens here. We have a little bug in our code. Can you spot what happens? Look at that, our circles are not 32 pixels. So to fix this problem, what we'll do is delete the width and height in social media. And can you guess why that problem was? Well, let's look at social media. Let's look at this class. We were not being specific enough. The element that we had to target was actually images. So let's actually give our actual images the width and height of 32 pixels. And look at that, it's all lined up perfectly. And if we inspect it, it's now 32 pixels. And it's social media in itself, the social media containers that hold all the image icons, have a margin bottom of 5 pixels. If we increase that, notice what happens. Again, all this will make sense as we go into the next topic. But that's it for margins. The next thing that we've got to apply now is our padding. And again, padding styles the content and gives the content space within our boxes. Margin gives it space outside of the box. So the first thing we're going to start with is going to be our header. And we're going to give it a padding of 20 pixels at the top and bottom and 0 pixels to the left and right. Now let's look at what this did. Let's look for a header tag. And notice if I uncheck it, my name is now all the way to the very top of the page. And we can increase this and mess around. And notice if we go here, now it's spacious as our final product. Now the other place we'll add padding will be our main selector. I'm going to add a padding of 0 pixels by 20 pixels. Let's uncheck that. Let's go to our main selector. Notice what happens there. We want no padding to the top and bottom, but we want padding inside. So this pixels, these 20 pixels to the right and left, will allow us to condense your content or expand their content. Now we want to add some padding to our footer. And we're going to add a padding of 10 pixels at the top and bottom and 0 pixels to the right or left. And you'll see why this makes sense. But look already what's happening. There's space from the top into the bottom. And we're going to go over to our footer. Padding. We're going to save that. And then lastly, your border. And we're going to add a border around our selfie like this, just so it can stand out. So let's find our selfie. You can do Command S, selfie. And we're going to apply a border of 4 pixels. It's going to be a solid border and it will be black. And look at that. We've got a beautiful border. And so this was it for walkthrough 1. It is a lot of material, so please review this video. If you've got any questions, reach us on Slack or email us. We're happy to answer any questions. Take a breather as well. This exercise was very long, so it's important to pause the video, take a walk, take a step away from the computer, and come back to the lesson with fresh eyes. We'll see you in the next lesson.